What if the only thing holding you back from becoming smarter and faster and being able to achieve your goals wasn't your age, wasn't your memory, and it wasn't your discipline, but something invisible? Something the famous and polymathic actor George Clooney did by finding a key and turning it in his mind and rewiring how he saw the world. And people like myself, learning and memory fanatics, once we know about this key, it changes how we think about polymaths like George Clooney. Because this key, what we might call the George Clooney key, is astonishing. Once you know, you'll be able to turn it yourself. And you know, you might be thinking, oh, this is so corny, the George Clooney key. But you know, humans, we have to have names for things. And that's part of what this key is all about. So I'll tell you more about the Clooney Key in a minute, but here's why you should actually care, especially if you're a lifelong learner who wants to be resilient to change and be able to complete your goals, learn faster, and remember more. As a polymath, Clooney's skill set ranges from acting to directing to screenwriting to philanthropy, and his ability to be philanthropic has improved because he has sold a company. I don't know all the details, but he set up very, very successful businesses, more than one, and one of them serves as the blueprint for celebrity-backed authenticity. So he's able to give at higher levels as a result. And his key, well, it connects a world-famous actor, one of the most influential music producers alive, and a breakthrough neuroscience discovery. And also a man I once coached who was 88 years old, and he was haunted by love letters he could no longer read. So let me share with you some of these stories so you know exactly how today's science-backed learning and memory tip will help you learn faster, remember more, complete more goals, and even more importantly, feel more excited and alive as you take on higher and higher challenges. As who? As the architect of your future, who holds the key, knows how to turn it, and get better and better results as you feel more and more excited and alive. Now, back when my first book on memory training came out, a wonderful fellow at the age of 88 came to me with a very simple goal. Two goals, actually. He kept reminding me, though, that he was 88, and he was filled with doubt that he'd be able to relearn German, basically from scratch, so he could read the letters he'd received from a woman he met during World War II. These were letters he'd kept, and they'd sat there unread for decades. In addition to being able to read them again, he also wanted to memorize dozens of poems, challenging poems too, like Thomas Gray's Elegy, written in a country courtyard. No, country churchyard, I think that's what it was. But the very first obstacle wasn't language learning or memory. It was a phrase that he had stuck in his head. He didn't like the term memory palace. He said it sounded too grand, too abstract, too far removed from the way he used his mind. Which is a shame, because in case you're new to this ancient learning technique, here's what a memory palace really is. A memory palace is a simple mental map, ideally based on a real location you know well, that allows you to store and recall information with precision and ease. It's the foundation of the magnetic memory method, where memory stops being random and hard and difficult, but memory becomes more spatial, structured, associative, fun, and when you get it right, nearly automatic. When you use a memory palace correctly, it can help you memorize an entire book. It can help you make progress in a foreign language or deal with complex concepts, even if you've struggled to remember basic things your whole life. And that's why subscribing to this channel really matters if you're new here, and absolutely smashing that thumbs up helps my mission to help as many people in the world experience what happened next for this delightful old fellow who listened deeply to me introduce an early version of the Clooney Key that you're discovering now. Because I don't just teach people what memory palaces are and how to use this or that memory technique. It's all about building a skill set for learning that actually works for life, because you need to have this key and you need to turn it again and again and again so you can keep reaching real goals as the world gets more challenging and more complex. So, as he got this key in his hand, he started to turn, because I asked this client of mine very simply. Okay, you don't like the term memory palace. I don't like the word slacks either. I mean, I remember when I was on tour in Germany with The Outside, and we played in Lübeck, I think it was called, and we played with a band called Nasty Jeans, and I was like, at least they called it Nasty Jeans and not Nasty Slacks, because I don't like the word slacks. But I also prefer to kill my like-dislike monster. So I'm not held back by these petty concerns. I mean, I would still see a band called Nasty Slacks if I liked the music, right? So I asked this older fellow, what would you call it instead? And he thought about it for a second, and he thought about the image of slaying the great like-dislike monster, and it rose in his mind as I was telling him about nasty jeans and nasty slacks, and he smiled. And maybe accessing some of that timeless wisdom that you get when you're 88 years old, or at least I hope I'm going to have when I'm 88, he smiled, and he said, I'll call it apartments with compartments. Apartments with compartments. And from that moment on, this client of mine soared. He did memorize dozens of poems. He quickly relearned the German language. And he sat with those letters from a lifetime ago, and he read every word. And I'll never forget the tears in his eyes, reviving so much joy and experiencing the magic of being able to speak poetry from memory, to recall it when you need a moment of solace because life has gotten hard. And although some of the lingo was a bit dated as he read some of these letters to me, I know German well enough, and I could track these wonderful sweet nothings back and forth as they shared details about their lives during the war. And that's just such a magical thing, to be able to do that in another language, because you just got a barrier out of the way. So the important point is not just that someone achieved a goal, it was the shift in the metaphor, the name, the label, from memory palace to apartments with compartments. That's really all it took. And I've seen it again and again and again. And I'm telling you this because we're psychological beings. And we often face these weird little mental obstacles that can hurt us. They can hinder us, but sometimes they actually can help us. And listen, I don't blame you if you're skeptical. Oh, changing the names of things is going to help me. But think about this Duke University study where two groups of people considered the art in an art gallery. And one group was told to simply check out the art. The other group was told to imagine that they were art thieves planning a heist. The second group remembered far more. Why? Because they had a robust mental metaphor, a frame, a purpose, a navigational tool. Now, stealing art is a crime, of course, but in your imagination, you can use such mental metaphors to speed up your progress, to create excitement, to motivate yourself, to actually have something nice that guides you, a North Star, as opposed to, this is such hard work, right? And if the Duke University study doesn't compel you, WWII has this amazing book called Indistractable. And in the pages of this book, he talks about the importance of the right mental metaphor. And he shares more science than this Duke University study, because the Duke University study didn't even exist yet. But there are other studies that show exactly that this kind of use of metaphor is very, very important. And I'll share another scientific reference with you that is very, very compelling, and it uses another word that you might not like, but if you pick your own word for it and you understand it, it's going to help you get over your obstacles and learn with greater joy. But before I get to that, I knew about this research from WWII in Indistractable, and it's why the book, The Victorious Mind, is called Victorious Mind. It's why Poseidon is on the cover. I literally called the Louvre in the middle of the night from Brisbane to secure the rights to use this image, because Poseidon is such an important metaphor for me. An image. And the brain responds to metaphors like a tuning fork. It can shape and sharpen your perception. The metaphor, if chosen well, can make your focus better. It can improve your memory. So this Duke University study is just one of many, many things. And Nietzsche talked about metaphors for tuning the mind. Many philosophers have talked about it. The entire idea of the form of the good in Plato is a kind of mental metaphor where you follow a particular path so you become like goodness itself. But The other scientific term I wanted to share with you is in the book The Experience Machine by Andy Clark. And the term here is predictive processing. So if you haven't read The Experience Machine, definitely consider adding it to your library. The brain is not a passive observer, according to this book. It's a prediction engine. You experience the future based on how you're rehearsing it now. And the evidence is in the book, and it has to do with Clooney in a very, very interesting way. So a way of thinking about this is that the metaphors that you use are a kind of rehearsal script through a process. And this term predictive processing, you might not like it, but just change it to something that you like. But essentially, the point is none of it's theory. It's biology and it's psychology and it's how you train. And those of you already in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass know that I talk about using a memory journal. It's very, very important. And it helps you guide yourself to create these metaphors, but keeps reminding you of the metaphors. The journal itself is a kind of metaphor. And one of the most recent metaphors that I've introduced is the idea of becoming a guardian of memory. And some of you recently joined the Guardian of Memory program. And if you'd like to be invited to become a guardian of memory yourself, stay tuned for some details in a few minutes from now. But when it comes to this term, predictive processing, one of the first things I thought about when I read The Experience Machine is George Clooney. And one of the reasons why I thought about him is because a lot of the studies of how predictive processing works, as described by Andy Clark in The Experience Machine, has to do with pain. And so what they find in a lot of studies is that people who ruminate on their pain tend to feel more pain. And those who come up with better metaphors around their pain start to have less pain because of how predictive processing works. Now, George Clooney is an incredibly successful person, a polymath who's pulled off projects that are astonishing and should be astonishing to anybody who thinks about it. All these things like acting and writing and directing and producing movies, and then also finding time to start businesses that sell for, I think, $1 billion or something like this, right? All while suffering chronic pain for years. And he finally found a breakthrough, and that breakthrough has to do with mental metaphors. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can read for yourself a GQ article with Clooney. It's from a few years back. It's been tumbling around in my mind for a long time. And basically, he changed his questions and other aspects of his predictive processing, leading to much better mental metaphors and a much better experience physically. So instead of asking things like, why is this happening to me? He began asking, what can I do with this pain? I don't know all the full details, and it's not all revealed in the article, but ultimately he experienced a way of essentially living pain-free, or better said, pain-capable. Now, I know that some people who deal with pain a lot are going to be like, oh, great, pain-capable. I don't want no pain. But sometimes that's the reality, right? The metaphor gives the pain a frame. And with a new frame, the brain stops fighting so much. In fact, the brain starts focusing. Now, one of the reasons I'm drawn to this particular aspect of it is because I myself deal with chronic pain, and I have for many, many years. And one of the ways that I've done it is to go a little bit further than just having mental metaphors like Poseidon, which is actually very powerful for me. But I've also done things by creating pain maps. So what's a pain map? Well, it's kind of like a mind map, but you're mind mapping the body, and then you're associating the areas of pain and bliss. And it has helped me work with Qigong and Neigong and Neidan and all of these different practices that I do. And it's just helped me create better mental metaphors, but it also helps with memory, because memory is a kind of mapping. And using the image of Poseidon with his Triton, is not just about weathering storms, but it's kind of like living as a storm master. Now that works for me, and you might think it's silly, but nonetheless, I change metaphors because sometimes I think my own metaphors are silly. I mean, I still really like the like-dislike monster, and it really, really helps me stop focusing on what I like or dislike, but live in total bliss beyond any of this, or just reason, just somewhere where there isn't this yanking back and forth between like and dislike. There's lots and lots of examples of this that I think can inspire you. And there's one that's more abstract and concrete that comes to mind that I think can help you just see it from a different angle. Rick Rubin, he's a legendary music producer. He stopped calling himself a producer, though, and he started calling himself a reducer. And, instantly I could judge that. My like-dislike monster could come up and say, a reducer, oh, how cute, how silly. But nonetheless, it works for him, right? His job, he decided, is not to add. It's to remove. Remove everything that gets in the way of the artist's essence. And so that metaphor helped turn him into a master of clarity. And we have heard some amazing music from a wide variety of artists in all kinds of genres as a result. So this same principle showed up again recently in a coaching call with one of my clients. And an amazing breakthrough happened for an amazing artificial intelligence professional with whom I myself am studying AI to help coach him better so that I can actually understand AI. And part of the Guardians of Memory is I do now offer you an AI mentor that you can work with that I've trained. Anyway, what he said was, I just feel like I'm always studying for the test. And I asked my client to pause on that language. Why frame it as a test? If there's so much pain involved in the idea of taking tests, couldn't we change the metaphor? What could we do to reformulate that whatever it is that we're struggling with now becomes something better? What if you reframed that idea that it's a test? Why not, instead of just preparing for a test, you're training to lead yourself to be a massive contributor to the world of AI, and that you are a leader or whatever. I'm not going to able to give people the metaphors, but be a mover and a shaker, someone who participates in actually framing the dialogue that we're going to be speaking about 10 years in the future. Within seconds, everything shifted. I could see it in his eyes, just the way that I'd seen the tears come up in the 88-year-old man's eyes. And earlier, I'd seen him have this moment of joy when he realized, I can change this. Apartments with compartments. That makes sense to me. So my client's tone changed. His level of attention deepened. He was deciding right in front of my eyes that the old metaphor of studying to take the test had to die, and a new metaphor arise from the ashes with renewed flames like a phoenix of learning. And that's the truth. The metaphors you choose become the future you live, and you don't have to take my word for it. Predictive processing is going to shape how you remember, how you respond to challenges in life, and how you grow and what you grow into. And when your metaphors have served their purpose, you can let them go, let them burn up in the ashes, and choose new ones. Because as you go through higher and higher levels of life, you're going to want new ones. They do wear out, for sure. And I've changed mine over and over and over again. I used to use the metaphor of the discipline engine all the time, and I just don't use it anymore. I don't feel that way, but it helped me at a period when I really needed some kind of frame. And the point for all of us who use memory techniques is that the more you know, the more you can know. And the more words you have, the more wonderful words you can use to help you come up with better and better metaphors that give you better and better predictive processing. So I can't give you this key because it's mine, and I use it a lot actually in magic. It's got special properties. If you ever come to the store and the memory palace I'm building, I'll show you this key and just how magical it can be. But for now, your invitation in the lesson, as you get the invisible Clooney Key that you've understood today from these stories, is to stop describing your learning as a grind. That is not the lock you want to be struggling with. Stop calling it a struggle. Start choosing metaphors that actually work. You're not grinding. You're forging. Now that's a lock that I want my key in. Forging. You're not memorizing, because that sounds like hard work, I guess. I love the word memorizing, but you might say you're mapping. You're not cramming. You're preparing for impact. I can't tell you what metaphors are going to be the key. That's why the Clooney Key is invisible. Until you make it visible, and then you find that lock, which is the goal you want to achieve, and you make better and better keys to work in more and more exciting locks. And then you turn, and you turn, and you turn. And I have all the science and all the examples that you could ever need to say, hell yeah, I'm going to use this simple strategy, and I'm going to make that key visible. And if you want more help putting it into action, I've created a resource for you. It's called the Self-Education Blueprint. It's completely free, and you can claim it right now. You'll be able to get invitations as I update my new AI mentors and become a guardian of memory who can access some of these. I've already got one. People love it. And there's going to be more little GPTs that I make for different aspects of the art of memory, because it's not always just memorizing this or that, but just imagine the future where there are personalized AI memory mentors that help you with medical terminology, that help you with AI itself, which is what I'm learning right now. I mean, it's just amazing the amount that I've already committed to memory. So if you're interested in this, grab the Self-Education Blueprint now, and you'll quickly learn more about how to choose learning metaphors that make information stick in your brain, how to build mental structures that accelerate memory and understanding with a predictive processing component, and how to transform your study into an absolutely exciting adventure that makes you feel more and more excited and alive with each and every moment, because you've got tools that take just minutes to learn and implement. And if you want to experience what it feels like to learn with clarity, purpose, and joy, the link is in the description below. And the truth is very, very simple. Your brain becomes what you tell it to become. And your permanent and very, very positive change can start with something just as little as one metaphor. But I encourage you to go a bit further. Write your metaphors down on pen and paper in a memory journal. And if you want to know why the physical memory journal is so important and use it to build a better habit immediately, stick around after you grab the Self-Education Blueprint and watch my video titled, "This Habit Separates Self-Taught Geniuses from Everyone Else." Go ahead, watch that next. Thank you, as always, and until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic.